Ah, good old Korean server. They're so quick about their games 90% of the time. It's great. In the top left is the blue Terran. It is aLive. In the bottom right is the red Terran. It's Splices TY. He just took out Ragnarok 2-0. aLive took out Yumiho at 2-0. Initially, it basically wasn't reported. No one told the admin, so Wardy had to come in and be like, actually, it was this. So now we have the correct score up on that bracket. Sometimes that happens. People think the other person's gonna report the score, and then, you know, the admin can't. The admin's on every single game. It'd be nice if that was, you know, something that they were capable of doing, literally watching every single game, being able to report in real time, but that's technology, it doesn't exist yet. So this is a quarterfinal. In order to advance through today, they have to make top 2s. That's top 1, bottom 1 of a double elimination bracket. It's unlikely, you know, 16 players that you'll be the one to get through. But someone has to, and why can't it be you? Everyone here is a contender. Even the guys that you don't expect. I mean, we had at least 2 people in chat just now say, like, who's Hurricane? I don't know. Who is he? But even Hurricane takes out Zest 2-0. And seriously, like, kind of general. You can generalize here, but it'll probably be true. Especially on the Korean server. If you're watching something that has Korean players, generally whoever suddenly has a good result, and you're like, who is that? It's someone new? No. It's someone really old. Most of the Korean pros have been pros since the beginning, or the transitional Brood War to StarCraft 2 period. So still pretty close to the beginning, all things considered. That was back in like 2012, 13, so it's been a while. And they just occasionally pop up and take good series. It's when they take good qualifiers and good tournaments that suddenly you're like, oh wait, like they're doing something different. They're suddenly doing really, really well again. Because right now the status quo, I suppose, if that's the right word, is rather set in Korea, with very few people trying to, oh my god, break it up or being successful at it. So Ragnarok, you know, one of the guys who might seem like a new name because he was picked up by Sidestorm, and you're like, oh, hold on here. Actually, no, super old school name. He used to be on TSL, for instance, back in the day. So this is getting a little out of hand. TY didn't expect to lose that Reaper, or he thought the SCV would get the last hit. I'm not sure, but he might have thought he got the first hit, and we've all been there as Terran players. You're like, I'm gonna win this Reaper fight. Oh wait, not? Like that's, hold on here. Am I dumb? It looks like he's going to barely be able to hold on the follow-up. aLive did immediately, like, at the fastest units possible to immediately continue the aggression. And that's where the Reaper fight really starts to get scary when you lose out. Is suddenly they have Hellions running across the map. They have more Reapers running across the map. The Cyclone takes too long, but the Marines take too long. But aLive really was trying to pile on the pressure. Didn't actually work out. aLive with some decent micro, but TY, defense advantage, you know, works out that way. Marine, surprisingly helpful in those situations, very consistent DPS, and things are a-okay. So aLive takes a perhaps temporary lead by 2 or 3 workers. TY has a faster Raven, or a Raven at all. aLive, I mean, most Tan players are not skipping Ravens amongst the pros. They get 1 at least, but it is possible to do so. You're going to have some trouble later on against potential Raven tank pushes. You're going to keep your eye on if they push at all, what type of push it's going to be. You know, do they bring Vikings, or is it just more of a ground base with Ravens for defensive matrix? Bio for TY, aLive, still undetermined. We saw Fantasy yesterday do some really cool Cyclone TBT. It's cool because it worked. I don't know how cool it really is otherwise, because Cyclones aren't cool. They're literally boxes on wheels. It's like some dad didn't really have, you know, craftsmanship to make like a really cool car for his son. So instead he put a box on wheels, and it's like, this is it. Just imagine it makes pew pew sounds. The kid's like, awesome, because kids are stupid. Oh, that was a nice cleanup. aLive thought he could get away. when really he should have just gone for the 1 or 2 SCV kills that he could have grabbed. So, nice clean up there for TY. Third CC is much faster for aLive, who chooses to go for it before going for any additional barracks, and it is barracks. But TY has the sim a lot faster. He does have more production, obviously going for the barracks as he did. And he probably still plans on getting a third CC. He just might have to get it on location / do some aggressive pushes or drops to try and make up for the difference in timing here. I'll have a +1, but aLive will eventually have 1-1. So, I mean, kind of a typical setup, really. TVT has a lot of different ways you can play it out, so it's hard to say anything's like super typical. But, yeah, we see this often enough. The person who goes for the extra command center versus the person who doesn't, basically, whether that's 1 base to 2 or 2 base to 3, and then someone has to make up for the lack of command center by being a little more aggressive. I mean, it's classic, right? It's classic. And then eventually gets a third CC down, and in this case, it is on location. It kind of has to be, but what really sucks about this is that aLive could technically, potentially, hold an attack as well as get like 5 Marines down here and cancel that, because TUI will be focusing basically entirely on the attack. It's not generally advised to rally in TVT, but the odd situations that you can include early game pushes, and especially pushes against people that you know have a third CC. So that's what TUI is going to do. And that does open up this third base of something here, like a simple Cyclone. That would do it. Would the Cyclone be helpful on the other side of the map? Still, yeah, it would. It would. Maybe catches that Raven, for instance, but generally it would just get blown apart, taken out by the DPS of the Marine, something like that. So it's better off trying to get this third CC. Not quite going to be able to, because it is a vulnerable, flimsy little thing, but it's good attempts by aLive to get that. Now, aLive knows he's going to be pushed, so it's not like he's going to try and take the third CC willy-nilly here. At least wait for Sim. But the next big hurdle to overcome is going to be that combat shields difference. Maybe even in some cases more important of a hurdle to overcome. aLive certainly has the positional game on lockdown. He has 4 Vikings and a Raven in his own, and a decent amount of tanks. So TUI's really, his one advantage is having the Sim and combat shields get a concave on a potential undefended third base. Like aLive, if he didn't have another tank up here and only 2 tanks here, and TUI knew that and didn't know about these 2 medevacs they're picked up right now, like, or did know, sorry, then he could try and push and win here, but he doesn't know about the 2 medevacs. There still could be 16 more Marines ready to cover, but there's the scan. It reveals the situation here. The third tank on the high ground, not going to be helpful as long as TUI skirts to the north side. There it gets a shot off, but actually already tanks are down, Vikings are down, another tank is down, accidentally rallied in here. SCVs were pulled in. aLive thought he was safe, but he absolutely wasn't. I think he was trying to time it out with this drop, which would have maybe caused TUI to pause or perhaps go home. Instead, TUI, with the very awesome scan timing and that third tank just not being close enough to help out, is going to try and get some revenge, but does take a pretty extreme loss on his tank count as well as a delay on the third. So he gets some SCVs here. He might even be able to get more. There's not a lot of Marines to help out. So even though combat shields isn't done for aLive, and that might be the big kicker here, more Marines come forward from the natural, and that's going to be it. Yeah, all he needed was like a couple more Marines, and that combat shield difference was going to be absolutely huge. That's exactly what happened. So TUI, he backs away from over here. I think he was a little low on army, so being overrun when he's not paying attention was a risk. One that he wasn't going to take. So he pulls back, he deals with a drop, he has a third CC on location, even if it's a little weak here. And while he lost 15 workers, TUI still is up workers by 3. Not a huge amount, but considering that he's been mining from this third base the entire time means that his income should be quite good. Quite a bit better. Oh, that is a big drop going to the north side. That has 2 tanks included, a lot of Marines. The natural is always an interesting place to doom drop. You basically are on every single map. I can't think of one with a big natural. Confining yourself. And while that sometimes works out, like, you know, you think of how you can confine over here and they filter through their own production, and that works out really well. It doesn't usually work out so well in the natural. And actually, this is just a disaster. This is a game-ending disaster. TUI was totally prepared. The other problematic thing about dropping in the natural is that the army is generally around the natural. So it's a much faster response. So it's just like a really, it's a bold thing to do. It's almost like, I think you're going to be defending as a Doom Drop in the main, so I'm going to try and mind game you almost type move. That's like when it's effective. And in this case, it didn't really work out. Got a couple more SCVs, so TY is cut down to 43. But the armor supply is now severely in TY's favor. Their upgrades have been evened out. Actually, TY ahead on the +2 attack, because I guess aLive was being attacked while he was transitioning between upgrades and just didn't have the minerals or peace of mind to do so. So he's quite behind on the upgrade now. And he has to almost keep up this aggression just to pretend he has a good army. A decent one. I guess his army is decent, but he has to be the one in control of every fight, because if he just stays at home and lets TY slowly encroach on him, TY just continues to encroach, continues to have that supply lead. And eventually this +2 attack lead as well, which is a big difference when it comes to TVT. Okay, yeah, that tank is in range. Oh no, that tank was in range too. Alright, so 1 for 1. Supply depots gonna scatter around the map, even building another one here. So a lot, gonna get a couple of freebie kills on with just a handful of Marines, not even a handful, a little speck of Marines. So in that case, it's not quite worth TY to lose it. But TY is more concerned about pushing aLive here. He went for a Liberator, he has the Viking control. He has a hell of a lot of Marines now with that +2. The Concave, he could take a decent fight, but that's just, I think, more Marines for aLive right now. As despite being down about 30 armor supply just a minute ago, he has made it back to a more even 10-15. And in fact, he's the one that finds TY in position. A single tank to help out here, but the SC... Oh, God, the SCVs were late to the pool. And even if they weren't, I think they die anyways. The Concave is now amazing for TY, who has the upgrade advantage, takes out the tank to the top side, and was about to go for this army on the bottom side, but decides not to, or thinks it's going to get out and about. It doesn't leave. Doesn't have enough medevacs to really leave. Doesn't have enough medevacs to enter the main base either, so TY can be less concerned about that. His drop is finally cleaned up in the main, where I guess he got a couple of SCV kills, but not a ton. Still even out in the workers, but now without that 3rd CC, TY is quite desperate, but he has Liberators. He has a lot of army, up 20 armor supply, but better armor supply. There's the upgrades, and then there's the Viking control, which doesn't exist anymore, just kidding. But there are still Liberators in play, and not a lot of tanks here for aLive. He's trying to build that tank count back up, but I don't think these guys have ever been comfortable enough on 3 bases, sorry, to go for 2 factories. I might be right about that. Still only on 1 apiece. The Marines come back here, but only 1 medevac healing could be an issue. TY was already preparing a bit for a base trade, or just, well, I guess without the 3rd CC, it was inevitable that he would have something in the main, I guess. But speaking of the main, that big Doom drop, TY not at a loss of medevacs, just instantly hops up to the main base, takes out the main command center on top of production. That should be game. Production getting killed, straight up killed right now. Even if aLive were to hold his production, whatever's left of it, it still would not be a great game for him. And he has to tap out. GG. TY takes game number 1. What a very back and forth game. And aLive did get here by taking out Gumiho 2-0, so. TY, I mean, he's good, man. He's a good player. But aLive's also pretty good at TVT. Plays in a lot of tournaments, a hell of a lot of tournaments, where he gets that experience. TY does play in a lot of tournaments, but not nearly as many small online tournaments. Not that he's saying he has lack of TVT experience, definitely not, but it's just that aLive we've seen with our own eyes, time and time again, day after day, that he has to face other Korean Terrans. And he's usually pretty good at it. Amongst the top Korean pros, or the most, the Korean pros that appear the most, you really do have this back and forth, you know. Key and aLive being, I guess, the most prominent names that come to mind when I think of online tournaments, but they'll constantly ping pong back between, like, okay, maybe aLive has the better track record, but then suddenly Keen kicks in with mech or something like that, starts winning against aLive, and then whoever other Terrans are actually joining in, also getting on the fun. There's a lot of TVT in Korea, guys. Surprising as that is. At TY, the things that we usually attribute to good TVTers is something that TY is kind of known for. But I'll get into that later, because we have something already on the way in the top right, going for the T-Rex. It is the blue Terran aLive. The bottom left, With the Red Terran, it is Splice's TY. Now, last game, he did go for a 1-Rex Expanse, which aLive knew about and might be trying to abuse here again, considering that you can certainly defend a T-Rex with a 1-Rex Expand. It's something that, you know, some Terrans still opt to do every game. A lot of other Terrans, it feels like, you know, yesterday and a couple other qualifiers are always going for a factory expand. Like, always. TY's not one of them. TY's gonna go for an 1X expand again. He's not gonna go for an SCV scout either, which I guess he didn't last game. And aLive, taking that into consideration on... I mean, actually, any map, this would be a good build to do it on. Considering what TY isn't doing to prepare against this. He's doing it. He's doing the old T-Rex Reaper. This is a really good idea. He's being rewarded. He's playing, a little bit risky. Obviously, just because TY does one build, one game, does not stop him from doing it the next game, because TVT is all about having a variety of openers, having the aggressive openers, having the defensive macro openers. Their TCs come down at all different times, so it's a risk, but in this case, I think it's a very smart one. aLive is going to be rewarded with either a lead or a straight-up victory here, and I'm kind of on the side of victory. TY is... Oh my god, okay, he's doing the worst thing possible. He's doing the worst thing possible. He didn't SCV scout after a 1-Rex expand. His Reaper's scouting the wrong direction, and he doesn't go for a second Reaper or even a Marine. He has a reactor immediately. That's not going to be that helpful unless he can buy a lot of time. That is the trade-off, but he doesn't buy time. aLive's not foolish enough to go chase that Reaper with his own first two. He wants to get that snowball going. He gets the SCV here. TY needs that factory to finish, and even if it does finish, the Hellions going to be so late that with 4 Reapers, or maybe 5, aLive can still take on a Hellion and a Marine. I think TY loses straight up. Almost gets the surround on the Reapers, but... TY's Reaper is going to go for some of its own damage, and that might be enough to even things up, but the second CC is not on the way. It could still be a target for the Reapers if they are forced to stay out of the main base. The Hellion does go down. Yeah, just instant. Okay, GG. aLive totally in the right to do that, man. Like, that was... TY was playing awfully greedy there. Like, you don't see many Terrans do that. I was talking about how many Terrans go for factory expands and how that's really gotten quite popular because it's a very helpful build against the T-Rex Reaper, while also providing some form of aggression if it's not. TY doesn't do that, that's fine, but then what he doesn't do also is not a CV scout or build a second unit out of that barracks. Like, that's extreme. That's something we don't see too often from Terrans at any point in TVT of, well, the last 2 years, I guess. So that's, yeah. That was almost supposed to happen. So TY's knocked down a peg. He's slapped. aLive says, don't do that, or I'm gonna get another free win. But this is the situation now where aLive probably doesn't do another T-Rex, and TY could do the whole mental game, like I know that you know that I know that I know. And still do what he wanted, which is, you know, no scout expansion. Darn it. With no second unit. We'll see, we'll see. Well, we know for a fact aLive's not going to T-Rex again, since we got that much down. In the bottom left, as the blue Terran, not sitting out an SCV, it is aLive. On the top right is the red Terran. It is TY. When you're down a game, why not go proxy racks? Well, I have a series for you to watch. It was yesterday, Fantasy versus Keen. Keen was down a game and he went for 2 racks, and Fantasy had been in both games, both the first game and then the next game where he was 2 racks, gone for a factory expand, and he absolutely just crushed it, and then had a winning advantage for the rest of the game. So that's why. These guys I was explaining prior to that game, which didn't last very long, but yeah, was that they can go back and forth. Does TY sound like the guy who's supposed to win? Yes, because we give so much credit to TY's name, to his ability to perform in tournaments. But aLive also, just the stalwart, like, Terran TVTer, also has a chance to take down TY. So there's back and forth in trades and games without having to resort to cheese. It's just that in that specific scenario where TY shows himself being pretty damn greedy, you should punish him. You should take the chance that he's going to do it again. And it was a chance, and it worked so damn well. So now aLive, you know, has this maybe ripple effect going on here where TY could have banked on aLive not doing a 2-Rax again, expecting TY not to 1-Rax expand again. Again, the whole, like, mind games thing, right? But instead, TY does not want to lose the 3rd game here to a stupid 2-Rax, and does go very defensively minded here. Not just his build, you know, the factory expand is coming down, so you guys are out of gas. That's great. That will defend against a 2-Rax. He also SCV scouted, which you don't have to do if you're going to go for anything but a 1-Rax expand. You could try and get away with it. That's excusable. With 1-Rax expand, it isn't so much. But what you can do with the SCV if you scout with it is bring it forward here to help. So that's why aLive instantly reacts with his own SCV pull. But it might still go in favor of TY. Nah, it's going to be fine. aLive is going to perhaps lose the SCV. Oh, hold on. Hold on. I thought maybe the SCV would be finished. Well, that's exactly what aLive was banking on, was that the SCV would be finished. The command center! Whew. And it is, but he still had to lose the Reaper in the process. That's not a supply depot wall off on the main. He put the supply depot over to the right side to make sure that the Reaper didn't have an additional hop-up spot, because it is blue shipped, and there are a lot of hop-up spots for the Reaper, but that does not end up hurting him. He built 2 Hellions out of that reactor, and because Hellions are already so quick to produce, the lack of second barracks unit didn't end up hurting there. It was a little scary. Because it was a factory expand, TY is not going to be that far behind in the command center or even the SCVs. And, I mean, yes, this command center's orbital will be a lot faster. It's like, things usually end up evening up. Liberator gets a shot here, Cyclone gets a unit there. The first game was quite even for a while, and then things get really heated during the mid-game. TY does have that Cyclone already out, whereas aLive's still waiting on his, but it's so close to finishing. This is not going to be any sort of snowball. An immediate lock on to TY Cyclone, so TY in fact gets burnt for being the aggressor. A lot of the times being the aggressor is not beneficial. You are forcing yourself into a worse position by having to move constantly. Sometimes it is better, right? You can go either way, but in that case, it certainly wasn't. By being the aggressor, the lock-on went to a Hellion or Marine or something like that. Nothing not useful, and aLive was able to think about how to defend and know to target fire TY Cyclone. And once you're locked on by another Cyclone and you didn't start the lock-on at the same time, you're dead. Best you can hope for is 2 identical lock-ons and a stupid trade 1-for-1. But that isn't going to stop TY from being aggressive again. His Cyclone does not get that Hellion, but more importantly doesn't get locked on either. And is also trying to do some scouting. Okay, this is going to be... Okay. So TY was hoping for the medevac micro to work out there in his favor, and I guess he did use it. I wouldn't call it in his favor. And there's a worst case scenario there where the Cyclone lock-on goes on the medevac and things are really weird. But as far as like was that a win or a loss, I guess that was a loss for TY, who manages to save the medevac and the tank, which is quite important. But the Viking's not doing too much. Oh, hold on. Nah, it's not gonna overrated. Oh god. I don't know how that Viking survives. What? What? Wait. Huh? Wait. What? Okay, somehow a Viking in the air just caused the tank to die. Okay, I'm just... Obviously aLive, target fired his own tank. Can we just say that happened? Can we say that Viking is the most amazing Viking that ever lived? What the fuck? Well, that's kind of big. I guess that's just, proving the whole point about when you, even if it doesn't seem like a lot, if you're the one that's dropping, even with like 2 Marines, you're the one that's harassing with even a Viking, apparently, you can cause your opponent to mess up, and that's a big loss right there. Okay. So, TY going to the 3rd CC, much faster than aLive. aLive a little bit faster, that stim might find some use for it, but usually with this amount of difference isn't usually found. Thelma Jeering Bay for our blue Terran, not yet for our red. There we go now. And our red Terran's also going for that Viking production. Still being aggressive, I mean, non-stop really. aLive hasn't been on TY's side of the map yet. And TY sieges, you know, without being in range of anything important, but it's still safer to do that. Now, aLive did not have a lot to work with there, but the 2 Ravens were just holding up in the main, so it's a good thing that TY didn't try and initiate, maybe. It would have come down to micro if interference matrix. I called it defensive matrix before, didn't I? Whatever. Interference matrix comes down from TY on top of aLive's Ravens, then suddenly he can continue pushing, but aLive's Ravens do that to TY, and, well, it could be problems. It's a lot about the Ravens right now, and that's why they usually are included in TVTs. The Viking control is even, actually. aLive at 5 to TY, but that's where defender's advantage would kick in eventually, so we may have 7 to 5 soon enough. Don't want to sacrifice the Marines. The Marines don't seem like a big deal right now. There's so few of them, but they are important to providing some fodder in front of these tanks. Okay, a lot just went down there. Interference matrix on the Ravens, plural of aLive, but only on 1 Raven of TY, as aLive's 2nd interference matrix went down, or 3rd, or whatever it was, on a Viking. So that is a win and then some for TY's air battle. Oh my god, now 7 Vikings to 0 with a Raven. That went so poorly for aLive. Oh my god. Okay, aLive, he cannot take this fight. He cannot keep this position, I guess is more accurate. It's not like he's going to push into this, right? But he can't keep this position. He could be pounced upon at any moment. Stand is done for both parties. Not that both of them have a lot of Marines, but they're getting up there now. aLive was faster to his 5 barracks production, and that is something very important to note. TY is not so much like less quick to it as is actually quite slow to it. Like, this is a substantial difference of production. So while TY's economy is looking, well, great, so is aLive. 7 SVs, 3 CCs for both players. One of them is able to use the economy immediately. The other one is waiting, right? Because you still have to wait for the reactors to all be built. So this is a very long difference. A very long time. Very big difference. This could be, I don't want to say game-ending difference, but it's something to consider. If TY is at a lack of Marines, that's why his tanks are hit. It's because his barracks are so delayed. But that is still, it's a lot of tanks, it's a lot of stack defense, it's a quick 4cc, this, I mean, TY plays these types of games, right, where he survives defensively. He sets up his positional units, his liberators, his tanks. He keeps eyes on his opponents with sensor towers, with the turrets, Marines, you know, every which way. And he does recover from bad positions, not that he was in one, or he recovers from lack of production, I guess, in this case. Now it's all up and running. But we've kind of accelerated past the potential, like, you know, tight 3-base or 3-base game, which was the first game in a nutshell, to a more, oh, you do your thing, I do my thing, and then we're both good command centers. But aLive is going for his on location. It's going to be a little bit faster. He's also much faster to the 2-2 upgrades, and he's also much faster to the additional starports. They really are skipping forward here for TVT. TY going for a 5th base and a 2nd factory, but needs to start thinking about his starport production, which I have no doubt that he will. TY is especially good in these situations late game. That's where he really got his name, I suppose. Well, I guess people started noting his name back in Pro League when he would have these really sick builds on different maps. But then, eventually, it was how damn good he was in the Supreme late game of all of the matchups, every single one. So positioning is usually this guy's strength, and that is a very, very good thing to have in TVT. aLive, despite having the faster production, is actually a bit slower to max out, but it's because he's adding on so many additional things, right? He's having the 2-2-1, he's having additional starports. So while he's not maxing out quickly, he's going to be maxing out eventually on probably better units. And we have to talk about, you know, how flexible TY's composition is without having to worry about the cumbersome Liberator-Viking combination where they lag behind, they need to be situated properly, they need to not be caught traveling over airspace they shouldn't type deal, how that can work out against aLive's composition, but ultimately, if stuck in a corner, aLive's composition will probably be the better one. But it's never as clear-cut as that, right? There's always so many things happening, even though we've had about 5 minutes where nothing's happened. Nothing important. I'm glad to see the chat was with me on that Viking kill. 3-3 is already on the way, so much faster than TY's 2-2. 40. His engineering bays were not that much slower. He was a bit slow to starting the 2-2. Uh-oh. Well, that's not a lot of Marines, so he could lift that. It's a lot of tanks, though, so. That is a strong position if it weren't for Liberators. So TY might not be going up to additional starports nearly as fast as aLive, but he already had the Viking lead from that earlier attack. I mean, at this point, 6 minutes ago, right? And he has that one Liberator from it as well. So that's great, but aLive's already on his way to beating that counts. Actually, how many Vikings does he have? Okay, so it's 10 Vikings to 12, Raven to Raven, but aLive has more production, I think, still? Oh, no. I saw one starport, but TY does go with the third one as well. So TY never really stopped producing Vikings, or not for long anyways. So even though he wasn't as quick to the additional starports, he still has a strong basis to continue building an air army off of. This is something that aLive recognizes, and no easy, cheeky, oh hey, suddenly I have two times the Vikings as you do, so I guess I win. We also have stack defense, I think, everywhere, or soon to be everywhere. TY's like getting a missile turret over there, but one missile turret can save your tank line, or it can immediately die. You know, either one. In this case, it does die, but no Liberators with the Viking army anyways of aLive. The Vikings here, anti-armor missile, can be a big deal. 10 Vikings to 12 now, but the Marines are on top of the ground army. That's far more important. They're going to take out the tanks as their interference missions as well. They're going to take out the Marines despite having... Actually, they have even upgrades now. The 3-3 is going to kick in like 20 seconds, but even if they had the upgrades, that was a good push from TY. He cleans up aLive's push and continues to hold defensively. 5 bases to 5. aLive has his own 5th. aLive adding more starports here because... As cool as it is to play like the super back and forth game with Marine tank versus Marine tank, we're on a really small map. We're making one fatal mistake that on maybe Parasite you could recover from because your production is just like insane. On Blue Shift, you're not going to recover from that. So you could play that. You could try, but you know, especially as aLive versus TY, you're probably not going to get many results from it. You're just going to lose armies after armies trying to take out the tank lines, planetary fortress lines, you name it, of your opponents, and then eventually just the resources lost is too much to handle. So how do you break a Terran, especially one that is so damn good and so eager to play this type of game? You know, TY's not the one to shy away from this, where you see some other Terrans really want to push the issue, try not to get here. You can kind of tell, like, maybe they don't like this stage of the game. TY, you can kind of tell he likes this stage of the game, or at the very least thinks he's quite good at it, so he even eagerly jumps forward to it. You break those types of players with Liberators and Vikings. As annoying as it may be. This is actually just catching TY going for a push. Sensor tower after sensor tower. aLive does see the push coming, and he will lose his planetary for the trade out here as well. But that wasn't exactly breaking TY, it was just breaking one single base. There's other bases on the way. In fact, a planetary fortress being made in the middle of all of his bases. Not a tactic you usually see in such a high-level game. But with TY being one of the best Terrans we have, I guess now we have to say it is a high-level game. It's a high-level tactic, guys. Planetary Fortress in the middle of all your bases in TVT is now something you should be doing, because TY did it. As soon as he goes for Planetary at third base, everyone else will do it too. But not only additional planetaries, in fact, he didn't end up making a planetary, so never mind. Abort mission. Don't do that, guys. Don't make a planetary defensively on a ramp. I guess maybe it was a misclick, or maybe it was a desperate type of thing. He thought there might be a base race. That's probably what he thought was going to happen, was that aLive was going to continue and he had to maybe get a planetary to help him out. Cancels it, reforms it on the 4th base, which makes more sense. Sensor tower reveals aLive's movements. TY does need to build another one over to the right side, because 3 tanks will not last against even like a portion of aLive's army. Yeah, if there's one medevac included, they definitely won't hold up, so. TY's going to get some more defense over there. The entire army of aLive is trying to skirt the sensor towers, and TY, not knowing that, but guessing it, is trying to get into position. Not quite in position, though, and has unsieged tanks. The air battle's going down, but interference mages have already hit the tanks of TY. So many anti-air missiles, at least 2. A lot of Ravens left over for what could be more. Now, with their damage being as it is, it's not really worth to spam them, but yeah, it's I guess something versus the Marines. It's more so about dealing with the air army, which TY absolutely demolishes. He used, I think he had more than one Liberator at the start of that battle. So he loses his Liberators, but he still has 1 left over to potentially push through. If aLive were to try and continue pushing, sieging up his tanks, and that means TY will once again defend this base. aLive, though, still on his own 5 bases. Yes, this is now transferred over. It doesn't have a bad economy, but I think he's been taking worse losses. Yes, he has, quite significantly, in fact. Considered it's a mirror matchup. TY has been able to put all of those resources he did lose into these additional command centers, so he can even start to lose out on SCVs and not really worry. In fact, probably even be happy about it. His armor supply would be higher. Another anti-air missile on top of the tanks. The Marines are going to try and jump on top of them. Not really going to work out. Really nice control from TY, clearly, as these Ravens and Vikings in a different hotkey. This is awkward. What? That timing was surreal. I don't think aLive was even looking at the space. Like, that was just him planting it, and then TY coincidentally lifting as the command center went to go plant. That was... yeah, okay, as I said, surreal. So, now they both know about their intentions to take that base, but that's not a surprise. It's just both of them wanted to see it before it was a planetary, and, well, TY ends up getting his army there faster. Anti-air missile on TY's units, but also from TY to aLive. Interference mages on quite a few of TY's units as well, but he has so many Ravens that he still has things to use. He still has spells to use. Is he going to use it? Another anti-air missile. Blankets the rest of the army. Ravens go down here. The increasing Viking count. And while TY loses an orbital, he still has more to replace it. He's now going to be making his way down to the south with his own ground army, tanks, Marines, medevacs. No air army, but that might not matter. aLive's army not quite in position, not ready to defend against this. We also have a big issue of battlecruisers now being on the way, something that aLive cannot afford with how he's been trading. His tanks get sieged up in the wrong spot, get instantly taken out. Don't even take out these 2 tanks in the front lines. With that many tanks blasting with the planetary, not really worth repairing, but it's something that he can't lose either. aLive not the one banking a bunch of orbitals ready to go. This might end up being a decent trade for aLive, though. Interference mages in every single tank. They are taken out. Now, hold on here. He had to focus fire them once those auto turrets came down, but in fact, he did. So every tank goes down. Auto turrets try and help. A little late to the party. That was a big loss for TY if it wasn't for the rest of the game. That is not a big loss, all things considered. aLive is going to try and take what he hopes is an advantage. Going to push forward, but he's down in army supply. The battlecruisers are a little weird. You know, there's not that many of them, and they can be targeted down by the amount of Marines there are. We also have the armies being evened out with the anti-air missiles, so... okay, yeah, that's happening. Okay, this is going to be it. aLive's just trying to push in here. He's desperate. It's not going to work. GG.